players changing places. The best fit for Cooper Kupp this offseason is where?
I'm going to go to Dallas because of the Devontae Adams possibly to the Chargers. So I would say Cooper Kupp. Again, I'm looking for a veteran receiver who understands routes, who understands timing and rhythm for a quarterback to help Dak out. If you're the Dallas Cowboys, you're in this division, you've got to do something to put yourself on that list to compete with Philly and compete with Washington.
To another receiver, Mike T. The best fit for Deebo Samuel is
the Washington Commanders. This one's easy, Greeny. Look, Terry McLaurin is really good, but one of the things that I think Cliff Kingsbury did a great job of, get the ball out of Jaden Daniels' hand. What does Deebo Samuel do great? He's great run after the catch. I think he's a great complement to what they already do there, and hopefully that's a fit when it comes to the salary cap and the contract.
I was thinking Steelers for him. That's a great. I do like that fit there in Washington.
Let's go all receivers here. Kmart, the best fit for T. Higgins next year is?
Selfishly, I want to see him with the Chiefs.
Oh.
You know why? Bad blood between these two teams. And if the Bengals don't want to pay up for T. Higgins, listen, the Chiefs, I understand they have Patrick Mahomes, but they need to give him another receiver.
Yes,
a guy who can go up and get contested ball. This is the guy that they need.
Can he play tackle?
Yeah, I can't. I was going to say, Green, it's a good idea, but I have legislation pending in the state of Kansas that the only thing they can do is sign offensive linemen. So that's a violation of the new law.
Here's the thing about Higgins is he said he might take less to stay in Cincy. That blew my mind. I'm like, well, I love him in Kansas City.
Put it on my GM hat. That's contextual. Is that like 5 cents, $5? Like what's less?
It's $1.50. I'll go for $1.50. That's all I'm saving.
It's one of the very important dominoes that will fall.
It is.
And probably pretty soon. Let's close the loop on the NFL's head coaching hiring cycle. Yesterday, Kellen Moore in New Orleans officially hired by the Saints. So he wins the Super Bowl there on Sunday, and then he's back to take over the new team. He was the Super Bowl champs offensive coordinator, of course. Under his leadership, Philly had the 7th-ranked scoring offense during the regular year, had 16 touchdowns and 1 turnover in 4 playoff games. So what does this mean? It means it's going to be another interesting offseason for Jalen Hurts. A new play caller, a new offensive coordinator. That is nothing new for him. What you see on your screen, I'm going to give you a moment to digest this. It goes back to his freshman year at Alabama. Quite literally every single year since then, he has had different people calling his plays in his ear, designing his offense. This will be his 4th different play caller in his last 4 seasons with the Eagles. One might argue that makes it all the more remarkable that he's had the success that he has. When players in that situation fail, and they usually do, we use that as an excuse. So what do we say about Jalen, that he has managed to overcome something that would have derailed a lot of other young careers?
Dare I say elite? Absolutely. Not only has he done it, he's been to the Super Bowl twice, won one, and played extremely well in the other. So when you're thinking about what Jalen Hurts has done, it's absolutely incredible. Green, I'll give you a stat. The last 3 years, Philly averaged 27 points a game. That was with Steichen, 26 with Kellen Moore, and 25 with Brian Johnson. That sounds like the quarterback's doing a pretty good job.
Yeah.
And I get, everybody talks about the offensive line. You know, I'm as big an advocate as any, but the quarterback still has to play week in and week out. He has continued to do that. I respect that guy out of his game. I do not think he'll take a step back. It will take time, but they still have a great offensive line, 2 great receivers, a great running back, and a very good tight end.
I agree with all that. They have one other thing that's really important. That's great. They have a great head coach. Nick Sirianni.
Preach!
Nick Sirianni took over Team Greedy that won 4 games. And when Nick Sirianni became the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, Hembo gave me the stat. Jalen Hurts has started 4 games. So at some point, we have to go by the facts. And the facts are Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts are a great tandem, and they're both great in their respective roles. I'm not saying it's Reed and Mahomes yet, but they are on that trajectory. And look, Nick Sirianni hired Shane Steichen. He hired Kellen Moore. He deserves credit. So I agree. I understand there's different offensive coordinators, but there is continuity relative to the head coach.
And Sirianni, can we give him credit for the tush push? I know him, but the greatest, the most unstoppable play in football. Created in Philly.
Yes.
God, that just makes me happy.
One man's
I respect you, bro. Thank you. I've been fighting all season.
Where you been?
That's what I'm saying.
So I was gone one day. And it says here that Kmart is the CEO of the Jalen Hurts fan club. Now, I believe I'm the one who named you the president of the Jalen Hurts fan club quite some time ago. So I'm not sure when you were upgraded to CEO. Was there a board meeting that I missed on the System Choir board approval? Whatever it is. So I was not here to allow you to take your victory lap.
The board members did not vote. We did not take a vote. I was a dictator. I just appointed myself.
You have been on Jalen Hurts' corner at times when others have not been. What do you say today?
Because to me, what we saw, he's clutch. And I think a lot of times people kind of like nerd out a little bit with the stats. No offense, Hembo. But I think there are other intangibles that you can't quantify. So while Jalen Hurts, while you might say like, he's not as talented or athletically gifted or as special dynamic as some other quarterbacks, in the biggest moments, he has shown up. I understand last year their entire team fell off a cliff, but what we see is when he's against Mahomes, he has outplayed Mahomes both of those times. And it's a credit to him. I think that's the context, that graphic that we showed. Every single year, he's played with 11 different offensive coordinators, and he's still managed to be the type of leader behind the scenes and then in the game that team requires. And that's why I'm not worried about him.
Something else really matters here, and we're going to get into the draft season and all these quarterbacks, and we use this expression all the time. The tape sets the floor. The character sets the ceiling. He is the son of a high school coach. He has got
O-line coach.
He has gotten better.
O-line coach.
He has gotten a lot better throwing the football, and that's why he won the second round. They had Carson Wentz and gave Carson Wentz a massive extension. Yeah. Jalen Hurts has earned all his success because he has worked at his craft.
I want to go back to something that Kmart said about being clutch. They played almost 30 games, one-score games. They've won 23. They've won 80% of their one-score games. Every time that happens with the Chiefs, we give full credit to Patrick Mahomes. Every time. But we don't do the same for Jalen Hurts, man. You win 80% of one-score games, your quarterback's doing something right. That is clutch.
It's a narrative world, right? So weird things happen. What happened was 2 years ago, this week, he played that great game in the Super Bowl and they lost. And the narrative was he's about to become the best quarterback in the league, right? It's going to be Mahomes and him. And then things didn't go that way for whatever reason. I don't know. We'll have to wait for the book to come out on what actually happened last year.
Like the whole team, offensive, defensively, took a massive step back.
And so then, what does the world do? We overreact. Oh, he's not that good at all. Yeah. Oh, but Josh is way better. Lamar is way better.
Unless you got a mouse in your pocket. Don't include the three at this table.
Fair enough.
We all stayed strong. You know what I mean?
All right, let's talk about the Cowboys draft strategy, because honestly, no one saw this move coming. Going into the draft, fans had one big question. Would Dallas go all in on a game changer or play the long game by stacking up picks? A lot of people expected the front office to make a bold first-round selection. Maybe a top offensive lineman to protect Dak Prescott or a dynamic playmaker to shake things up. But instead, the Cowboys threw us a curveball. They traded down. That's right. Instead of picking early, Dallas made the call to move back and collect additional draft capital. And let's be real, this decision is dividing the fan base. Some see it as a smart strategic move to build depth for the future. Others think it's a huge mistake, passing on elite talent just to gamble on later picks. So, what do you think? Did the Cowboys make the right call? Drop a Y for yes or an N for no in the comments. And this is just the beginning, because the real drama starts when we break down what happened next. Now, here's where things get really interesting. By trading down, the Cowboys took a huge risk, because in the NFL draft, every pick matters. And as the selection started rolling in, it became clear that some of the Dallas's top targets wouldn't be waiting for them. One of the biggest gut punches, Luther Burden. The dynamic wide receiver was high on a lot of fans' wish lists, and for good reason. His speed, route running, and explosiveness would have given the Cowboys offense a serious boost. But before Dallas had a chance to grab him, boom, off the board. And it wasn't just Burden. Several other key prospects, players that could have filled major needs, were snatched up before the Cowboys' new selection spot. A dominant offensive tackle, gone. A top defensive playmaker, gone. Suddenly that trade down started to feel a lot more risky. So let's hear it from you. Who was the one player you really wanted the Cowboys to pick? Drop the name in the comments. Now, with their original targets disappearing fast, the pressure was on. Who did the Cowboys end up selecting? Let's break it down. So after all the anticipation, all the speculation, and yes, a little frustration, the Cowboys finally made their pick. And the name they called Player's Name. Now, let's break this down. Was this the right move? This guy brings some serious strengths to the table. He's mentioned key skills, elite speed, lockdown coverage, dominant pass rushing, and etc. And when you look at the current Cowboys roster, you can see why they made this decision. But here's the real question. Was he the best player available? Some fans were hoping for another player still on the board, and others wanted a completely different position addressed. It's a pick that could spark debate. So let's settle it right now. Do you approve of this selection? Vote in the comments with a 1 for yes or a 2 for no. But wait, just when we thought the Cowboys were done making moves, they shocked everyone because they weren't finished just yet. Stay tuned. Just when it seemed like the Cowboys were done for the night, they pulled off a move that no one saw coming. They traded back up in the draft. Now, let's talk about why this is such a big deal. After trading down earlier, the expectation was that Dallas would sit back, accumulate picks, and play it safe. But instead, they flipped the script and went aggressive. They gave up assets to move back into a premium draft spot. And the reason? I'm with players' name. This was a guy the front office had its eyes on all along, and clearly they weren't willing to risk losing him. He's got mention key skills, explosive athleticism, leadership qualities, versatility, etc. And the Cowboys saw an opportunity to grab him before another team could. But was the price worth it? Dallas had to sacrifice mentioned picks, Hoyt's assets given up, and that always comes with risk. Did the Cowboys play their cards right, or did they overpay? I want to hear your take. Was this the right move? Drop a W in the comments if you think it was a win, or an L if you think they messed up. Now, with these two key picks locked in, it's time to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. How does this draft reshape the Cowboys roster? Stick around because we're diving into that next. Now that the dust has settled, it's time to take a hard look at what this draft really did for the Cowboys. Did they actually fill the gaps in the roster, or are there still major concerns? Heading into the season, first, let's break down the biggest needs before the draft. Dallas came in needing help at mentioned key positions: offensive line, defensive line, wide receiver, etc. With the picks they made, did they actually address those holes, or did they leave some areas dangerously thin? Then there's the question of immediate impact. Some rookies step in and become stars right away, while others take time to develop. Are these guys ready to contribute on day one, or are the Cowboys betting on long-term potential? And let's not forget free agency. The draft isn't the end of roster building. Dallas could still make moves, sign veterans, or even make another trade. Is there a key player they should target to complete the puzzle? Now it's your turn. After this draft, do you think the Cowboys improved? Drop a Y for yes or an N for no in the comments. But before we wrap this up, let's answer the biggest question of all. Was this draft strategy a genius move or a massive gamble? Stick around because that's coming up next. All right, let's get real. Did the Cowboys just pull off a brilliant draft strategy, or did they gamble away a golden opportunity? On one hand, trading down gave them extra picks, more chances to find future stars, and flexibility to build a deeper roster. That's a smart, calculated approach. But on the other hand, they passed on some serious top-tier talent. What if the guys they skipped become superstars elsewhere? That's the risk they took. It all comes down to whether the Cowboys' picks actually pan out. If these rookies step in and make an impact right away, this front office will look like geniuses. But if they struggle, fans will be looking back at this draft wondering what could have been. And let's not forget, other teams took a different approach. Some went all in on top prospects, taking big swings at potential game changers. Will Dallas regret playing it safe, or will this methodical approach pay off in the long run? So here's the question for you. Did the Cowboys make the right call by trading down? Drop a W for a win or an L for a loss in the comments. And hey, if you want to stay updated on every move this team makes, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next.